I hope it will be a useful resource because in our understanding, it's the first really to bring together the brain science and the lived experience, and to hopefully in a very understandable manner explain what happens in the brain when someone is suffering from OCD, and how the brain works in different ways, and how maybe OCD symptoms arise from changes in the brain. And to my understanding, this hasn't really been there before, and we hope that it will give a better understanding for people affected by OCD, but also their surrounding, their parents, their colleagues, and so on, and to understand that OCD is really a brain-related disorder, and that we can change that with the different treatments that we have.
I think this website is important because, to be quite frank, living with this disorder can sometimes be really terrifying. And it's terrifying in a way that I think a lot of physical conditions aren't. Because, like, for example, if you break your arm, it hurts a lot. But you can very easily point to the cause of the pain. You can say, oh, this is broken. And that makes it a little less scary than something like OCD or any other mental disorder for that matter, where there's this immense distress and you can't really point to what's happening. That lack of ability to point is really scary. And this website, being as accessible as it is, I hope will make it a little bit easier for folks around the world to point at least vaguely to something, to take away some of that terrifyingness associated with OCD.
I think the digital hub is so important because I don't think anything else of this quality explaining the science behind the way the brain works in OCD exists. And I think this information can be so empowering to people affected by OCD. I think it may help people understand how treatment works, and I think that really may help some people engage more in treatment. And I think for those reasons, this could be very transformational for a number of people affected by OCD.
The OCD in the Brain website is so important because, simply put, it does not exist right now. Nothing like it exists. As it stands, there is a good amount of information on the psychoeducation of OCD, what the disorder is, how it presents symptom-wise, but in terms of understanding what's happening in the brain, what's happening inside, and understanding the biology of the condition, there is so much that we have studied and that we have discovered and published in the world of research, but that's just not communicated or synthesized in one accessible place for anyone who is not already steeped in the research world. And so this website really just puts everything together from so many perspectives and makes sure to be accessible and understandable by the layman while also being factually accurate and robust from the research perspective. And it makes it open source and available to everybody without any blocks of access financially, age-wise. It is just unparalleled and I wish it had existed when I was going through treatment, but I'm very, very glad that it exists now. And it is really going to change the game for people going through OCD treatment, recovery, and even raising awareness for what the condition is. OCD faces so much stigma, being misunderstood as a quirk or an egosyntonic condition rather than the debilitating disorder it is. And to communicate the neurobiological basis for this disorder really takes leaps, bounds, and strides towards making sure people understand that it is a debilitating psychiatric condition driven by neurobiology rather than a choice or a quirk or an adjective.
I think this digital hub is important because it's a fully co-produced resource from the OCD community and the researchers. There's a lot of information on the internet, but it can be difficult to sieve out factual and relevant information, which can then be even more difficult for scientific writing, especially when it's often hidden behind a paywall or there is some sort of scientific jargon barrier. And so this digital hub has been produced for this exact reason, and we curate the information in an accessible and hopefully usable way.
I think it's important to see step by step what exactly is going on to the brain. It really helps minimize that OCD is this big monster that is uncontrollable, and puts it down to this very simple kind of brain mishap that's happening. I think that'll be very, very important tool.
I think that the website and the toolkit are important because OCD sufferers and their families need information and resources to help them understand OCD, and the website is an excellent educational tool.
The digital hub is important because it makes accessibility so easy and so possible. Anyone in the world with access to an internet connection will be able to benefit from this resource, which is wonderful. And it breaks down so many of the barriers we have to accessing information about OCD and related disorders, especially for young people and their families.